Facebook and TikTok are becoming a black box with two holes inside of it. One hole you put money into and the other hole you put creative into. A lot of people are like just doing broad targeting and then targeting with their creative. We have our discovery library, which is essentially just a real-time feed of all of the ads that everybody on the platform is saving. We have a product called Spider, which is a real-time competitor tracker that tracks every ad that your competitors launch on Meta, figuring out how your product can be shareable. Use influencers and agencies to increase distribution, and then SEO to bring in, net new customers. I think some of the best business stories in the world are people who take learnings from a previous industry that they worked in and then applied it to the industry that they're currently in.
Hey, Zach, welcome to my show.
Thank you. Thank you for having me.
Really cool. Today we'll talk about foreplay, a different type of foreplay. One thing I like a lot about you is I saw on your LinkedIn profile the About Me section, which just says bootstrapping the fuck out of foreplay.co. So what is foreplay?
I forgot I wrote that.
Yeah, I saw that. It's the only thing that, like, one line. Pretty straightforward. So what is foreplay in the first place? And maybe give us a little bit of a background. What are you doing and what is your background?
Yeah, for sure. So Foreplay is a B2B software platform. We help marketers and brands, brands at marketers or agencies streamline the pre-production side of their creative workflow, mainly for paid advertising on Meta, TikTok, and kind of just all the other social platforms. But I mean, Meta and TikTok are definitely, they take up the lion's share of ad spend for most brands. And also, when you have that level of ad spend, you need that level of like creative operations on the back end to support net new creatives. We have 4 core products right now as it sits. The first one being Swipefile was our first ever product. The genesis of it was I was running an e-commerce brand that I sold in 2021. Moving on from that, I wanted to build a software company, and I had like one very specific problem, which was saving ads from the Facebook ad library. And also, I just wanted this idea of just like a Pinterest, but for advertising only. My team we would do a weekly call where everybody would bring new ad ideas, and like links would be broken, or like everyone would have their own Google Drive or their own group chat where they'd be sending stuff to each other. But there was no like centralized hub of like advertising and creative inspiration that we could then use for upcoming campaigns. And so it kind of started with this idea of just, hey, I want to create a Pinterest for advertising. Our first product was the Chrome extension. On the back of that, like 30,000 marketers use our Chrome extension now to save ads. We have our discovery library, which is essentially just a real-time feed of all of the ads that everybody on the platform is saving. We have a product called Spider, which is a real-time competitor tracker that tracks every ad that your competitors launch on Meta. And then we have a briefs tool, which allows you to take all this inspiration that you're collecting everywhere on the web with our Chrome extension or through discovery, and then turn them into actionable briefs to send off to your team. And just like fill that top of funnel of creative ideas that you can then produce into new ads. In the next few months, we're also coming out with an analytics product, but I'm not talking a ton about that right now. But that's kind of where our product is going, is the full life cycle of, come up with new ideas, produce them, put media spend behind them, analyze what's working, and then feed all of that additional information back into sort of your creative loop.
I see. Super interesting. We'll get back to the products in a second. I'm wondering, if I'm not mistaken, your company is entirely bootstrapped. Is that correct?
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah. What's the philosophy behind that?
Yeah, I mean, I think everyone tells you, if you just were to go out and be like, I want to start a software company, anything that you would read online would be like, a lot of software companies raise money. And I think that's definitely a path for some people. And I'm not saying it's going to, like, bootstrapping is going to be our path forever. But I think when deciding to bootstrap, you need to understand what you're trying to get out of the pursuit that you're setting out on. For me, it was just to build like a really good product and make a good amount of money. When you bootstrap, you open up a lot more options to how I can win as an individual and how our team can win in terms of like an exit or run the business forever or a million different off ramps. Whereas if you bootstrap, it actually reduces all of your optionality, pretty drastically, especially if you're racing from day one. If you just look at the VC model, it is based on most of the companies failing and a few of them being outperformers. But the reality is, if you stay bootstrapped, you can actually just build like a really, really good cash flowing business. And for me, like, I had a little bit of capital starting out. And so I was able to just like fund the project and also just like will it into existence through working on it myself based on all of the work I had done in my like background. Like I didn't need to hire a team of 10 to start. I could take a lot of that workload on myself. And so for me, the decision comes down to optionality. And I mean, really, realistically, it's optionality and freedom is the main driver behind the decision.
I would assume you started with the Chrome extension, so you actually started to see what the market tells you. Because from what I see in the industry is that a lot of SaaS platforms or products, they go the opposite direction. They say they have a specific assumption on what the market needs, and then they build a product that potentially nobody would use in the first place. But you take a different approach. You see who pays for your platform in the first place, who's interested, and then you just leverage that feedback instead of like leveraging feedback from free users, for example, which is a
For
different
sure. I mean,
philosophy.
I've always been anti-free user. I think there's a ton of industries in which free users, you start with coming with a free product and get traction, and then upsell to those people. I really think if you're selling into businesses and your goal is to be a B2B software company, there's zero reason why you'd ever want your first customers to be free users. At the end of the day, early adopters are often the ones that are willing to take out their credit card faster than anybody. And so I do just think for consumer apps, it's completely different. But for B2B software, where the main objective is to get people to take out their credit card from their business credit card in the future, I don't think that there's any value in having free users to start. And then like one clarification too is like we actually didn't start with the Chrome extension. We started with a platform where you actually had to go to the Facebook ad library, copy the link, go back to our platform, paste the link, and then we scraped it on the back end. And the Chrome extension came like a few months later. But yeah, we actually started like with platform, but it was essentially the function of the Chrome extension just not in the best way. And that was never the plan. The plan was always to do the Chrome extension, but it was quicker to just get this like platform where you could copy a link, paste it, and save the asset.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I'm wondering, like, when I used Foreplay for the first time, it felt like maybe because I'm not running an extensive amount of ads, but it felt like more like a supplement in the first time when I used it. But then once you get into it, it feels more like, okay, it helps your creative process. It helps you a lot more than just saving a link and sharing it with other people. You can even build kind of I'm not sure how you call it, like a mood board kind of thing that you can share with other people.
Mm-hmm.
So walk me through the creative process. How will it help marketers and especially people in media buying using Foreplay?
Yeah, so I think the analogy of supplement and vitamin, it always depends on, if we actually think about like health, like what ailment are you suffering from, right? Like for yourself, if you were kind of just doing it casually, like looking at advertising, saving advertising, you were testing a little bit on paid, then you actually don't have a condition that needs a painkiller. But if you're a marketer that has a team of like 10 different marketers underneath you and you're constantly communicating, you actually have like this massive issue inside of your business. And so therefore for that person it is a painkiller. I think you could even just like look at like the difference between, what Ozempic or GLP-1s were produced for. Originally it was like a quote unquote painkiller, and then people are now using them as vitamins, right? So depending on who you are, these things can be different, different scale of what the problem is solving. In terms of like speaking to marketers, I think if you think about, if you're a marketer that was running paid media like myself in like 2017, 2018, 2019, there was a ton of stuff that I never really thought that much about ad creative, if I'm going to be completely honest. I was in like Facebook groups or Discord channels being like, what's the new bid strategy that's going to allow me to scale, whether it's like duplicating hundreds of campaigns and things like that. The truth is that today, a lot of those little hacks around getting efficiency out of the media platforms don't really exist anymore. Facebook and TikTok are becoming a black box with two holes inside of it. One hole you put money into and the other hole you put creative into. A lot of people are like just doing broad targeting and then targeting with their creative. And so what I would say is, now that these levers you're not able to pull these levers on the ad platforms from a targeting perspective, or from, account structure perspective, to get these efficiencies. The only lever that you have left to pull is the efficiency in which your organization can identify pain points and then produce ad creatives that speak to those pain points. And so if you don't have an efficient system for expanding, the potential TAM of who you're talking to from a new idea perspective, and you don't have the ability to produce those assets at scale and test at scale, then you're handcuffing what your ability is to actually produce or pull out of these ad platforms and the spend that you're putting into them.
That makes sense. I'm wondering how much AI is involved on your platform, because I'm thinking if you, for example, save a specific ad, could you, for example, reverse engineer it in such a way that you maybe take the copy, take a different creative, but maybe a similar one derived from one creative? Is that possible right now?
100%. So in our brief writing tool, you can take a video asset, whether it's from a direct competitor or like an adjacent company, and you can rewrite that script and inherit the general storyline, the messaging structure of that ad, and then adapt that script for your company. And so if you sell, greens powder, and you found a really, really good ad for, even like a company selling an energy drink, right? That energy drink might be speaking to increased focus, increased, productivity and things like that. And they outline that structure and that story in this very specific way. I could then take that script in our platform with the brief writing tool and just rewrite that script. And then boom, I have a new angle, a new asset, a new script that I can then produce. We haven't really touched into, end-to-end generative AI as of right now. Again, we're a bootstrap company. There's a ton of heavily funded companies going after, end-to-end gen. I think what we're kind of like doubling down on and believing is that one, AI is going to help us produce things at scale, but I do think that there's just an inherent strategy level that's always going to exist at the human level. And I think that's what we're helping people do, is strategize, where they're putting energy, where they're putting ideas and messaging, and then they can produce them in whatever way that they decide to produce them. But we're kind of sitting at that pre-production stage, in which humans are strategizing, what do they want their company to speak about? What are the problems which their product or service can solve? And let's just help them sort of optimize the speed and velocity in which they can do that in a very organized way.
I see. Interesting. I'm wondering, from a reverse engineering point of view, would you also be able to identify or see analytics from a competitor? For example, how long have they been running this ad for? Any numbers maybe? Is that also possible?
Yeah. So across everything inside of Foreplay, you can see how long the ad was ran, when it was turned on, when it was turned off. Inside of Spider, specifically, since we catalog all the ads, whether they're live or not, you can also then see, for example, we have a tab in there that says creative tests, which bundles together ads that were launched on a singular day. So if you look at a competitor, you can then see, okay, on January 13th, they launched 13 new ads. If I'm now looking at that creative test bundle on January 31st, I could see, there's only 2 ads out of that bundle that are still running. And so you can then reverse engineer to be like, okay, in those other 10 ads that were turned off, what was common about them versus the ones that continue to scale? And I think there's a lot of learnings in forming your own strategy of what could work. The other place where AI sits is on the emotional analysis and creative targeting of an asset. The one incredible way to increase the TAM in which you can target on, a Facebook advertisement or any other platform is speaking to a specific category with a specific problem and triggering a specific emotion. And so inside of all the ads inside of Foreplay, we also do an emotional analysis on the asset. So is this speaking to empathy as a core emotional driver? Is this speaking to fear as a core emotional driver? And then you can reverse engineer your messaging to be like, this one competitor that's crushing us right now, all of their advertisements is fear focused, and they're targeting people that are scared of their house burning down. Okay. And that could be a product where that wasn't 100%. I never thought this product could be used like that or messaged like that. And I think that is the key to direct response, is understanding, okay, we have this product, we have this service. How many different people can we sell this to? And how many different pain points can this product address? And the quicker that you can expand that, you can then expand the TAM in which, you're speaking to, and, potentially collect revenue from.
I get that, yeah. From a reverse engineering point of view, we just talked about a couple of bullets. Let's say I'm going to reverse engineer a couple of ad campaigns on ad set, for example, but I'm not 100% sure, because it could also be that the people running the media buying system, so to speak, are not pros in running ads. So maybe they have turning off the wrong ads. And what happens in that
100%.
case?
I mean, at the end of the day, I think you need to be, with research, it's supposed to be giving you another data point, not a roadmap, right? Yeah. And so at the end of the day, when you're building out your strategy, you're building out your own roadmap. And along that way, and as you're kind of charting that course, you're just pulling from a bunch of different data points, right? At the end of the day, nothing's going to tell you more than your own ad account. But if you're trying to expand your ad account, if you're trying to scale, it's 100% in your best interest to be getting inspiration, but then also just getting ideas from the market. And it's maybe not a direct competitor. I think the biggest problem or the biggest sort of pitfall of marketers is inherently as humans, maybe something's not going well. We instantly look outward to be like, what are other people doing to succeed? You can assume that they're succeeding and you can get ideas. But at the end of the day, I think the best thing to do is identify companies in which you know that paid media is a massive driver for their growth. Okay. And if you're a earplug company like Loop earplugs, that doesn't need to be a bunch of other earplug companies, right? That could be ice bath companies, right? That could be greens powders companies. Figure out and reverse engineer how they're speaking to their customers and be like, okay, if I needed to speak this way to my customers, how would I do that? And I think that's where it fits in. But at the end of the day, I don't think people should be just going out and directly copying their competitors because then there's no market differentiation. Like, look outside of your market. I think that's the biggest, from what I hear from customers, that's where they like discovery, right? Before Foreplay, people would just go to the Facebook ad libraries of their direct competitors, and that's all they're getting inspiration from. Because it took a lot of sort of cognitive load to be like, to actively go seek out, other random companies that you never heard of. But if you go into discovery, you can instantly just scroll through, like, I think it's now 40 million ads that have been individually saved by other marketers on the platform inside of Foreplay. And so that means that you're essentially inheriting the research work from a bunch of different industries in which you might not have known about. And you can start getting inspiration from other places. I think some of the best business stories in the world are, people who take learnings from a previous industry that they worked in and then applied it to the industry that they're currently in, right? And I think the more that you can do that as like a repeatable process in your workflow, I think you can find, like nuggets of inspiration and gold in which you can be like, oh, like this worked in pharmaceutical. Why can't it work in supplements, right? And I think that's like if I was speaking to marketers and you're only looking at your competitors, the number one thing you can do is just look outside of your market for inspiration.
Yeah. As a founder of Foreplay, I'm wondering, like, if you see all these ads being run on a daily basis, do you also learn from these ads, like for your own paid ads, for example?
Yeah, I mean, I would say like our company has never grown aggressively through paid advertising. I actually think B2B SaaS is probably one of the hardest niches to grow through paid advertising. I think paid advertising for B2B SaaS is always sort of like a tailwind, or something that's just like pushing forward all the other go-to-market motions, whether that's influencer, whether that's partnerships and things like that. In terms of like what I actually learn is, or the thing that I really focus on is, what are the assets that people are producing and what are the trends that are happening? And then how can we enable more companies to hop on trends faster, to execute on trends faster? Because at the end of the day, I think people always say that, you shouldn't trend hop and things like that. I mean, there are core principles to direct response that you should just apply, but trends can make meaningful impacts to your business, right? Like if you catch the right wave, even if it's a short-lived wave, it's incremental and it makes a difference. And so if the only difference is the speed in which you can hop on a trend and you can continue to do that, if you average it out, you're growing the business faster. And so I think that's the main thing that I look at in terms of, kind of what I get from being so close to the platform.
Yeah. What is your preferred way to do marketing right now? Maybe you can get us a little bit of insights or give us a little bit of insights on how you do marketing, especially for B2B SaaS. That would be interesting to know how you see that.
Yeah. There's no like secret growth hack, especially to B2B SaaS. I think there's a lot more little growth hacks to consumer apps, right? B2B SaaS, the thing you need to do is build a good product. I will say that our company, it benefits from a lot of luck in the way that the product's built, right? So people save ads on Foreplay. The only reason you ever save an ad is there's two reasons. For yourself in the future or to send to someone else. And so we have like hundreds of thousands of share links just out percolating in the world. And I would say like that's our sort of like secret growth hack, but it's very connected to just building good product and things like that. The other things that have worked really well for us is SEO, just like very high intent SEO, long tail SEO. I mean, I think that's definitely how we got our first 200 customers, is people searching for how to save ads from Facebook ad library. That's a very high intent user. I would say what we found now is that scaling, when you start with the highest intent user and like kind of dominating those keywords, it's very hard to scale SEO beyond that, right? Because everything else that you're writing from there is longer tail or multiple degrees of separation from intent based on that first one. And then the other piece that have always worked for us really well is partnerships with agencies and then partnerships with influencers. And so I'd say like that's our sort of core marketing stack, is more than anything, good product, figuring out how your product can be shareable. You use influencers and agencies to increase distribution, and then SEO to bring in, net new customers is kind of what our stack looks like right now.
Yeah, basic but very effective. I'm thinking, what are some of the misconceptions people have about paid ads in general? Because you have a great network, you also run this platform Foreplay. Like, what are some of the misconceptions people have? Like, do they sometimes think it's kind of the magic pill to solve all of their problems?
I think people think it's a magic pill, and I think people that didn't have paid advertising from day one, because maybe it's budget constraints, they think that once they have the budget to put into paid ads, it's going to be a multiplying effect on everything that they're doing. And that can be true. But especially in the current state of paid advertising, where everyone says it gets more and more competitive every year. It's like, yes, every ad platform that works gets more competitive every year. If you don't have strategy, and in this current state, if you don't have strategy, and if you don't have an efficient way to identify new angles and produce advertisement at scale and test at scale, you can't just put a couple, image ads on Facebook onto Facebook ads and then put $1 million behind it. Will there be an incremental lift? Potential, yes, right? Like if you put that many eyeballs in front of something, there'll be an incremental lift. But it's just from first principles, right? Like if everybody could just put $1 in a machine and take $2 out, then everybody would do it. Mm-hmm. And so I think people should look at it as a market. You are competing for eyeballs. You are competing for attention against some of the largest companies in the world, or even small companies that have incredible marketers. And so, yeah, I do think some people think it's a magic pill. But what I think they should really think about it as is a new sector of their business, right? No matter what you're selling, what you need to build out is a team and a process for accurately communicating the value to your customers through paid advertising. And the way that you're doing that does not stay the same, and it is not stagnant. And so it needs to be an ever evolving cycle inside of your business of how are we communicating our value to people through these 3 seconds that people are giving us their attention while they're scrolling on social.
Yeah. Any other misconceptions that people have about paid ads, Zach?
I think the biggest one is thinking that they need a really big budget to start off. I think a lot of, because especially if you're thinking about e-commerce, the rate in which you can turn over cash means that like your ad budget doesn't really matter, right? Because you're turning the cash over. And so it's not like you're just dumping a bunch of cash in and then waiting 60 days. You should be starting with a small budget, and you should be scaling it up based on what's working. And so I think if someone's like holding off, being like, maybe they're listening to the podcast and like, oh, this company's spending 800 grand a month. I don't have 800 grand a month, so I can't compete. That would be a misconception. At the end of the day, it is a market in which you can fractionally buy attention at whatever your budget allows you to. And then as you find success, you can scale it up and turn that cash over.
That makes sense. I'm wondering about the Foreplay team. How big are you at the moment, and what's kind of your ethos on creating an engaging, move like startup culture?
Yeah, I think so. We're right around 12 people right now. I would say 50% of it's dev, 50% is other things, whether it's design, customer service, things like that. My thesis around like getting productivity out of human beings is always just focus on not work being done, but work being completed. And that's it. I think often we can get caught up in oh, I'm working on all these projects, or I'm doing all these things, or I'm working on this, or I'm working on that with, a time horizon that's completely arbitrary. Uh, One, it's set deadlines in which it doesn't matter what you set that deadline to. It will usually get done in that amount of time. So just continue to inch that back and constrain it as you can. Um, and then yeah, focus on what's being done. Like one of my favorite, there's that Twitter account like tech exec emails or whatever. And there's just like that Elon one that's like, what did you get done this week? And like that's all that matters. There's 52 weeks in a year. And so if you pass by 50% of those weeks in which nothing is considered to be done, you're so that's 100% kind of my thesis is focus on done, not working on. And I don't care about what you're working on. I care about what got done.
Do you have a specific hiring philosophy?
I don't think I think I'm probably working on that right now. I don't think I'm amazing at it. I think the one thing that I've realized recently is that your ability to hire is not always your ability. Like the success in your ability to hire is not your ability to hire the right person every single time. I think and the thing that made that true for me is like you just look at the success rate, or you ask around to friends or other people in the industry of like out of 10 people you hire, how many of them were the right one? And I think I think if you look at it like a 6-month time horizon on teams less than 20, like I think it's less than 50%. And so that gave me a lot of freedom to just be like, take a bet. If the bet, isn't working out, cut losses and move on, and just increase your surface area for finding the right person. I think the leading indicators that I've found to successful hires is people that had side projects, people who work not because they need to work or they've been told to work, but I think someone having any kind of side project, meaning they're trying to do something productive because they were not, and it's not because they were told to. I think that's one of the largest that I've seen, like leading indicators of like a successful employee.
Absolutely. Talk to me a little bit about, maybe give us a sneak peek on the future of Foreplay. Like what are the plans for the next, let's say 2 or 3 years?
Yeah, I mean, I don't look that far out. I definitely only look kind of even a year seems a little bit far. I have ambitions and visions of what that could look like, but I wouldn't say that I'm planning for it. As of right now, we're coming out with the analytics product to complete the creative workflow cycle, in which you're learning from not just your competitors, but the own ads that you're running, and then comparing those to competitors. And then I would say so we're 3 years old now. Over the last 3 years, we've been heavily focused on product and creating a good product. And then a lot of that has been my attention. I would say right now, I'm still 100% focused on making the product better and creating the product, but a lot more of my time now is being shifted to go to market and scaling. And so I would say like those are the things that are the most important to me right now is coming out with the analytics product and maturing our go to market.
Really cool stuff. Zach, I would be more than happy to kind of showcase the product or the platform to my users on my YouTube channel. So maybe we can arrange that. But anyway, thank you so much for the podcast. Maybe we'll have a part 2 once the analytics tool comes out.
Yeah, I think that'd be really cool. We have I would say that is when a lot of the cool AI stuff is coming is in the analytics tool.
Good stuff. Thank you so much, Zach.
Sweet. Awesome. Thanks for the time.